I don't know this woman, Nathan Sterling said, staring at me from the hospital bed while his first love held his hand. His mother turned on me in front of the doctor, the nurses, and half his family. You heard him, Iris. Stop forcing yourself into my son's life, in my past life. Those words made me cry, beg, and spend the next 3 years trying to prove I was his fiancée. This time, I only looked at the engagement ring on my finger, then I took it off. The room went quiet. Lydia Shaw's soft smile froze at the edge of Nathan's pillow. Margaret Sterling's anger faltered for half a second because she had expected tears. She had expected me to explain the proposal. Show photos, call witnesses, drag out old messages, and plead with a man who remembered his childhood dog, his favorite wine, his college debate team, his company password, and Lydia's birthday. Everyone except me. I placed the ring on the metal tray beside his bed. I understand, I said. Nathan frowned as if my calm bothered him more than my grief ever had. I turned to Dr. Palmer. Please remove me as Mr. Sterling's emergency contact. I also need copies of the medical authorization forms I signed last night. Margaret's face changed. What are you doing? I opened my phone, saved the voice recording, and closed the shared bank transfer page before anyone could see my hands shaking. I'm stepping back, I said, completely. The first time Nathan forgot me. I nearly destroyed myself trying to become memorable again. I brought framed photos to his hospital room. I played voice messages from the night he proposed. I described the restaurant, the rain, the way his hands had trembled when he opened the ring box. I told him about the apartment we chose together, the white couch he hated and bought anyway because I loved it, the scar on his left wrist from when he burned himself making me breakfast. He listened with polite discomfort. And he asked Lydia if she wanted coffee. In that life, I mistook humiliation for devotion. I believed love meant staying until he remembered. I believed patience would be rewarded. I believed a man who had once said, "You are my home," could not truly look at me like I was a stranger forever. I was wrong for 3 years. I lived as the woman everyone tolerated because I was useful. I paid his medical bills. I stabilized his company. I drove his mother to appointments. I smiled through family dinners where Lydia sat beside him and I sat at the far end of the table like an unpaid assistant. When Nathan finally remembered me, he did not come back. He simply said, "I was confused." Then Lydia helped him through the hardest part. As if I had not been there. As if I had not sold my mother's old house to cover the loan that saved his company. As if I had not died slowly. One apology at a time. My last memory from that life was not dramatic. There was no storm. No screaming. No cinematic tragedy. I was alone in my car outside the Sterling family home, holding a folder of receipts Margaret had asked me to organize. Nathan and Lydia had just announced their engagement inside. I remember laughing once. Then the headlights blurred. When I opened my eyes again, I was standing in the hospital room where everything had started. Nathan was alive, pale, bandaged, and beautiful in that cruel way that had once ruined my judgment. His dark hair fell across his forehead. A bruise shadowed one cheekbone. Wires ran from his chest to a monitor that beeped steadily beside him. His hand was wrapped around Lydia's. "I don't know this woman," he said. The words landed exactly where they had landed before. But this time they did not break me open. They unlocked something. Margaret Sterling stood at the foot of the bed in a cream suit that cost more than most nurses made in a month. Her face carried the elegance of old money and the sharpness of someone used to turning gratitude into obligation. "You heard him, Iris," she said. "Stop forcing yourself into my son's life." Lydia lowered her eyes. She was good at that. Her softness was always positioned for witnesses. Her voice never rose. Her hands always trembled at the right time. She looked like the kind of woman men wanted to protect from women. Lee Kumi, "I'm sure she's just scared," Lydia murmured. "Nathan, don't push yourself. The doctor said memory can be fragile after trauma." Nathan looked at her with trust. He remembered her. Of course he did. Dr. Palmer glanced between us. Uncomfortable. Holly, Nathan's younger sister, stood near the window with her arms folded, her expression tight. She was 23, sharp-eyed, and quieter than the rest of her family. In my past life, she had avoided taking sides until it was too late. My fingers curled around the engagement ring. It was a platinum band with a square-cut diamond Nathan had chosen after 3 weeks of asking me casual questions about jewelry. I had worn it through every insult. I had treated it as proof no proof was enough. Now I slid it off. The movement was small. The room felt it anyway. Margaret's mouth tightened. Iris. I placed the ring on the metal tray beside Nathan's water cup. Nathan's eyes moved to it. Something flickered there. Not recognition. Displeasure. That mattered in my past life. He had looked confused when I cried. Guilty when I begged. Tired when I explained. But he had never looked displeased until I stopped giving him what he expected. I understand, I said. My voice sounded calm. I almost did not recognize it. Margaret blinked. What exactly do you understand? That Nathan doesn't remember me. He doesn't. I said. So. You need to give him space instead of upsetting him. I agree. Silence. Lydia's lashes lifted. Nathan's frown deepened. I turned to Dr. Palmer. Please remove me as Mr. Sterling's emergency contact. Margaret stepped forward. Absolutely not. I looked at her. He doesn't know me. It would be inappropriate for a stranger to make medical decisions for him. You are not a stranger. Margaret said through her teeth. Nathan's gaze sharpened. I let the contradiction hang in the air. 5 seconds. 10. Margaret realized it too late. Lydia's fingers tightened around Nathan's hand. Dr. Palmer cleared his throat. Ms. Hart is correct. If Mr. Sterling does not recone eyes her and wishes for another representative, we'll need updated authorization. I'll sign. Margaret said quickly. Good. I opened my purse and took out the folder I had brought the previous night. In this life, I knew exactly what was inside. Emergency admission papers. Deposit receipts. Insurance forms. Consent documents. A card authorization for additional treatment charges, all signed by me while Nathan was unconscious. All used by his family after they decided I had no place beside him. I also need copies of everything I signed last night. I said. Dr. Palmer nodded. The records office can prepare them. Margaret's face hardened. This is not the time to be petty. No, I said. It's the time to be accurate. Nathan spoke for the first time since denying me. Were you paying for this? His voice was rough from intubation. In my past life, that question had filled me with hope. He had noticed. He had cared. I had rushed to tell him that money did not matter. That his recovery was the only important thing. That I would handle everything. Now I said. Yes. His eyes held mine. Why? The question should have hurt. It did a little, but not enough to make me bleed for him again. Because I was your fiancé yesterday. Margaret inhaled sharply. Iris. I looked at her. Today, according to everyone in this room, I am not. Holly turned her face toward the window. I saw her bite her lip. Lydia said softly. No one is trying to erase you. I almost laughed instead. I looked at her hand on Nathan's. No. I said. You're just holding the eraser. Her face flushed. Nathan shifted. Wincing. Lydia immediately leaned toward him. Don't upset him. She said. That line had worked on me before. Don't upset him. Don't pressure him. Don't make his recovery harder. Don't force him to remember. Don't punish him for being injured. So I had punished myself instead. This time, I stepped back from the bed. You're right. I said. I won't upset him. I opened my phone and stopped the automatic transfer scheduled for 8 that evening. 10:000. A recurring payment to cover Margaret's temporary household expenses while Nathan recovered. Cancelled. Then I opened the hospital payment portal and removed my card from future billing. Cancelled. Then I sent a message to Claire Bennett, the attorney I had met once while drafting the prenuptial agreement Nathan kept postponing. Need urgent appointment. Medical authorization. Engagement dissolution. Financial exposure. Personal guarantee. Claire replied within 1 minute. Tomorrow morning. Bring everything. I put my phone away. Margaret watched me with narrowed eyes. What did you just do? Made sure I don't overstep. Don't be dramatic. I'm not. You are punishing an injured man. I looked at Nathan. He was watching me carefully now. As if I had become a document in a language he could not read. No. I said. I'm believing him. No one had an answer for that. I left the hospital room without another word. In the hallway, the smell of disinfectant hit me so sharply that my knees almost gave out. For one terrifying second, my body remembered everything my mind refused to repeat. The nights on plastic chairs, the cold coffee, Margaret's orders, Lydia's perfume in the room I had paid for. Nathan's eyes sliding past me. I gripped the railing. Breathe. A nurse approached. Ms. Hart, are you all right? Yes. I straightened. Where is the records office? She gave me directions. At the counter. I requested copies of every form, receipt, and authorization connected to Nathan Sterling's admission. The clerk looked tired but efficient. Do you want digital copies as well? Yes. Anything else? Yes. I'd like written confirmation that my card has been removed from future charges. The clerk typed for a moment. You were listed for the deposit and emergency authorization. I would have said yes because I wanted at least one Sterling to think I was graceful. I would have made my pain easy for everyone else. This time, I typed, no, but I will be. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, Holly wrote. Mom is furious. Lydia is still here. I typed. That is no longer my room to enter. Holly did not reply. I slept for 3 hours and woke before dawn. Not peaceful, but clear. At 8. I was sitting across from Claire Bennett in a glass-walled office downtown. Claire was in her 40s with silver at her temples and the kind of eyes that made lies feel unsafe. She had reviewed our prenuptial agreement draft 2 months earlier and told me to be careful. I had not been careful. Now I slid the folder across her desk. My fiancé suffered a head injury yesterday. I said. He claims he remembers everyone except me. Claire opened the folder. And you want to remove yourself from every legal, financial, and medical obligation connected to him. She looked up, not surprised, interested. Are you ending the engagement? Yes. The word landed between us like a door closing. Claire nodded once. Good. Then we move quickly. For the next hour. We built a list. Medical authorization. Emergency contact removal. Shared account freeze. Recurring transfers. Townhouse lease. Wedding vendor contracts. Personal guarantee for Sterling Innovations bridge loan. That last one made Claire pause. You personally guaranteed part of High-S company's loan. Temporarily. I said. He said it would be replaced by investor financing before the wedding. Claire's mouth flattened. Was that in writing? I opened my email. She read the messages. Nathan. Just until the Series B closes. I don't want my mother panicking. I know it's a lot to ask. Iris. But you're the only person I trust. Me. I need a timeline. Nathan. 30 days. I promise. After that. You'll never have to carry anything alone again. Claire leaned back. This was 6 months ago. Yes. And the guarantee is still active. Yes. She removed her glasses. Iris. This is not just emotional exposure. This is financial danger. I know. I did know. In my past life. That guarantee had trapped me. After Nathan chose Lydia. Sterling Innovations lost investors. Creditors came after everything. Nathan apologized beautifully and paid slowly. Margaret blamed me for not being patient. Lydia called me bitter. I spent years cleaning up a life I had never been allowed to share. Claire tapped the papers into a NEA-T stack. We notify the lender immediately that your engagement has ended and request release or replacement collateral. We also send formal notice to Nathan Sterling and Sterling Innovations. They may resist. They will. Do you have leverage? I opened another folder. Company invoices I had covered. Brand strategy documents I had created without payment. Emails from Nathan asking me to delay billing because family money was tight. Wedding deposits paid from my personal account. Margaret's monthly transfers. Hospital receipts. Claire looked through them slowly. Then she smiled without warmth. Yes, she said. You have leverage. At 10:30, Margaret called again. This time I answered on speaker while Claire listened. Iris, Margaret said. Voice clipped. Where are you? With my attorney. Silence. Then. Excuse me. Your attorney. Why would you need an attorney? To make sure I respect Nathan's boundaries. Claire's mouth twitched. Margaret's voice dropped. This is absurd. Nathan asked where you were this morning. My heart moved only once. Then I crushed the movement before it could become hope. He doesn't know me. He is injured. Then who'd be surrounded by people he remembers. You are acting like a stranger. No. I said. I'm acting like the stranger he said I was. Margaret inhaled. If you embarrass this family. I'm not the one who denied an engagement in front of hospital staff. You know perfectly well he was confused. Then you can explain that to the billing department. They're expecting your payment by noon. Claire looked down at her notes. Margaret went quiet. There it was. The first crack. Not when I removed myself from Nathan's heart. When I removed myself from the invoice. You canceled the payment. She asked. I removed my card. You had no right. I had every right. It was my card. Iris. Listen to me very carefully. Nathan needs stability. If you create financial stress right now, his recovery could suffer. In that case. I'm glad his mother is available. You ungrateful little. Claire reached across the desk and pressed the mute button. Good. She said. Save this call record. I did. By noon. Formal notices were sent. By 1. The hospital confirmed Margaret had paid the consultation deposit. By 3. The private nurse I had arranged called to ask why Mrs. Sterling was shouting about cancellation fees. By 5. Nathan called. I stared at his name on my screen until the ringing stopped. He called again. Then a text came. Iris. We need to talk. In my past life. That sentence would have sent me running. This time I typed. Please contact my attorney regarding any legal or financial matters. A minute passed. Nathan. My name on his screen. My name from the man who did not know me. I did not answer. At 7. A courier delivered his belongings to the hospital front desk. At 8. I changed the lock code to my apartment. At 9. I turned off our shared location. At 10. I sat on the floor beside the empty shelf where our engagement photo had been and cried at last. Not because he forgot me. Because I had remembered myself. The next morning. A notification appeared from the bank. Joint account access temporarily restricted. Then Claire forwarded me an email from Sterling Innovations CFO. Urgent. We need to discuss Ms. Hart's withdrawal from the guarantee. This could affect active funding. I looked at the screen. For the first time since Nathan opened his eyes and erased me. I smiled. Not happily. Clearly. He had forgotten only me. But everyone was about to remember what I had been carrying. Margaret Sterling did not apologize. She invited me to dinner. The message arrived on thick cream stationery, hand-delivered to my apartment building by her driver. As if good paper could make an insult respectable. Iris. Given the emotional confusion surrounding Nathan's accident, I believe it would be best for everyone to speak calmly as a family. Please join us for dinner at the house tonight at 7. Margaret Sterling. Family. I held the card over my kitchen trash can and almost dropped it in. Then I stopped. In my past life. The first family dinner after Nathan's accident had been where they quietly repositioned me. I arrived with soup, medical notes, and desperate hope. Lydia was already seated beside Nathan. Margaret introduced me to an elderly aunt as a close friend who helped during the emergency. Nathan said nothing. I sat through dinner with my ring hidden under the table. My hand curled into a fist. Tonight would be different. I took a photo of the card and sent it to Claire. She replied. Go only if you want to. Record if legal in your state. Do not agree to anything. Do not sign anything. Do not accept verbal guilt as obligation. I wrote back. I want them to say it clearly. Claire responded. Then let them. At 6:30. I dressed in a black wool dress Nathan once said made me look too serious. I wore no engagement ring. No necklace he had given me. No perfume he liked. At 7. I arrived at the Sterling house. It was not really a house. It was a glass and stone monument to controlled taste. Built on a hill with views of the city and no visible warmth. I had spent holidays there arranging flowers, smoothing conflicts, helping Margaret host people who complimented her on details I had handled. The housekeeper opened the door. Her eyes flicked to my bare hand. "Good evening, Ms. Hart." "Good evening, Mrs. Bell." I liked her. She had once slipped me tea after Margaret made me cry in the powder room. Tonight. She looked worried. "They're in the dining room." Of course they were. The long table was set for 6. Margaret sat at the head. Nathan sat to her right. Lydia sat beside him. Holly sat across from Lydia, arms folded. Nathan's uncle Vincent, a board member at Sterling Innovations, sat near the far end with a glass of whiskey and a face already arranged into disapproval. My usual seat beside Nathan had been removed. Not moved. Removed. There were only 5 chairs placed around the table. I stood in the doorway and looked at the empty space where I used to belong. Margaret followed my gaze. "Oh," she said smoothly. "Mrs. Bell must have misunderstood the count." "No problem." I walked to the sideboard, took a chair myself, and placed it at the end of the table opposite Margaret. No one spoke. Then Holly coughed into her napkin. I sat. Nathan watched me with that same unsettled focus. He looked better than he had in the hospital, though a bandage still marked his temple. Lydia poured water into his glass before he reached for it. The gesture was intimate, practiced. I let myself see it. Seeing clearly was painful, but blindness had cost me more. Margaret smiled. "Thank you for coming. You asked me to." "I did, because this situation has become unnecessarily hostile." "I agree." Her smile sharpened. "Good. Then we can start from a place of reason." Vincent leaned back. "Nathan needs peace. Iris. Whatever arrangement existed before the accident, surely you understand that pressuring him now is inappropriate." "Arrangement?" I repeated. Lydia looked down. Margaret said, "No one is denying that you and Nathan were close." Holly's head snapped up. I looked at Margaret. "Close. Engagements are emotional things." Margaret said, "But until a wedding happens, nothing is final." In my past life, I had argued. I had said he proposed. I had said you helped choose the venue. I had said you introduced me as your future daughter-in-law. They had watched me plead my own reality into evidence. Tonight, I reached into my bag and took out a folder. Nathan's eyes dropped to it. Margaret's smile thinned. "I brought documents," I said, "so we don't have to rely on emotion." Vincent snorted. "This is exactly the pressure we're talking about." I opened the folder. Wedding venue deposit paid by me. Catering deposit paid by me. Engagement announcement draft approved by Margaret. Prenuptial agreement draft request. Ed by Nathan. Email from Nathan to the lender describing me as his fiancé and temporary guarantor. Hospital forms signed by me as fiancé. I placed each paper on the table as I spoke. One by one. The plates looked decorative beside them. Lydia's face lost color. Margaret did not look at the papers. "No one needs a performance." "No," I said. "You needed dinner." I brought clarity. Nathan reached for the nearest page. Lydia's hand moved as if to stop him, then froze when Holly noticed. He read silently. His jaw tightened. "This is my signature," he said. "Yes." He looked at me. "We were getting married." It was not a question. "Still," I answered. "Yes." For a moment, the room changed. Not softened. Shifted. Nathan stared at the paper like it had accused him. Margaret recovered. "First, you know he doesn't remember the emotional context." "I know." "Then you understand why we need time." "No." Her eyes narrowed. "No. I understand why Nathan needs time to recover. I do not understand why his recovery requires me to keep paying bills, carrying loans, absorbing public humiliation, and pretending I imagined an engagement." Holly stared at her plate. Vincent set down his glass. "Be careful. That sounds like a threat." "It's a boundary." "Same thing. From people who want control." I looked at him. I learned from this family. Margaret's hand struck the table. No. Ugh. The silverware jumped. Lydia flinched beautifully. Nathan looked at his mother. I wondered if he recognized this part of her. The polished cruelty. The way she could turn money into morality when someone else was spending it. Margaret lowered her voice. You are hurt. I understand. And that. But Nathan did not choose to lose his memory. No. But everyone in this room chose what to do with it. Lydia whispered. That's unfair. I turned to her. Is it? She met my eyes for half a second and looked away. Margaret said Lydia had been nothing but kind. Lydia was holding my fiancé's hand while his mother told me to stop forcing myself into his life. Nathan's eyes flicked to Lydia. She said quickly. You were scared. You asked me to stay. Did I? Nathan asked. Her expression trembled. You don't remember. The room paused. There it was again. The weapon of uncertainty. No one had to lie if Nathan could not prove the shape of truth. I opened another page. Hospital visitor log. Lydia went still. Margaret's gaze sharpened. How did you get that? I requested records connected to forms I signed. I read aloud. Lydia Shaw entered the ICU waiting area at 1:12 a.m. Nathan regained consciousness at approximately 3:40 a.m. Lydia entered his room at 4:05 a.m. Margaret entered at 4:16 a.m. Holly at 4:28 a.m. I was called in at 5:02 a.m. Holly's face changed. She had not known that. In the old life. I had not known either. I had been told Nathan woke and asked for Lydia. Now I knew Lydia was there before he woke. Nathan looked at Lydia. You came before my mother. She called me. Lydia said. Margaret's lips pressed together. I looked at Margaret. You called his ex before his fiancée. Margaret did not blink. Lydia is an old friend. Nathan's memory was unstable. Familiar faces help. I was his fiancée. He did not remember you. You didn't know that when you called her. The room fell silent. Holly slowly leaned back in her chair. Vincent said. This is becoming ugly. It was ugly yesterday. I said. Tonight it's just documented. Nathan pushed his chair back slightly. Why was Lydia called first? He asked. Margaret turned to him. Darling. You had just survived a serious accident. I made the best decision I could. By calling Lydia. She was part of your past. So was Iris. The sound of my name in his mouth hit harder than I wanted. I kept my face still. Margaret noticed. Anyway, you see. This is why we must be careful. Every word affects her. No. I said. Not anymore. Nathan looked at me. I took out the final document. Here is what happens next. I have withdrawn as medical proxy. My card has been removed from hospital billing. My monthly transfers to Margaret have stopped. The joint account is frozen pending legal separation of funds. My attorney has contacted the lender regarding the personal guarantee for Sterling Innovations. Vincent sat upright at last. His boredom died. You did what? I asked to be released from a guarantee that was supposed to last 30 days and has lasted 6 months. That guarantee is tied to active financing. I know. Margaret's face went pale with rage. You vindictive girl. Mother. Nathan said. No. She snapped. She knows exactly what she's doing. She is using your accident to attack this family. I laughed once. It slipped out before I could stop it. Everyone stared. I used his accident. I asked. I paid the emergency deposit while you were calling Lydia. I signed surgical consent while you were deciding whether I still counted. I stayed awake all night while Nathan was unconscious. Then he woke up. Said he didn't know me. And you told me to leave. So I left. Margaret's cheeks flushed. I gathered the papers. But you're right about one thing. I know exactly what I'm doing now. Lydia's voice turned small. Iris. Nathan is still recovering. If you loved him, couldn't you wait until he's stronger? That sentence. If you loved him. The leash disguised as a question. I looked at Nathan. He did not defend me. He watched. As he had watched in the old life. Waiting to see how much I would absorb. I stood. If he loved me. I said. He would not need me to disappear politely so everyone else could feel comfortable. Nathan's mouth parted. Margaret rose too. Sit down. You will not walk out in the middle of a family discussion. I'm not family. The words were quiet. They landed harder than shouting. I picked up my bag. Nathan stood too quickly and winced. Lydia reached for him. Careful. He shook her off without looking at her. Iris. I stopped at the doorway. He looked confused. Not empty. Confused. Were we happy? He asked. In my past life. I had answered that question with everything I had. I had told him about Sundays, road trips, private jokes, wedding vows drafted on napkins. I had poured our happiness at his feet like an offering. This time, I said, sometimes. His face tightened. Only sometimes. I held the back of the chair for 1 second. Love can be real and still not be enough to survive disrespect. Then I left. Mrs. Bell was waiting near the entryway with my coat. Her hands shook a little as she helped me put it on. Drive safely, Ms. Hart. She whispered. I will. Outside. The night air was cold enough to clear my lungs. I was halfway down the steps when the front door opened behind me. Holly. She had Nathan's eyes. But none of his practiced distance. Iris. I turned. She came down 2 steps. Then stopped as if she was not sure she had the right to come closer. I didn't know. Mom called Lydia first. She said, I believe you. Her shoulders dropped. I should have said something yesterday. Yes. I said. She flinched. I did not soften it. She needed truth more than comfort. I'm sorry. She said. I know Nathan really doesn't remember pieces. But she looked back at the house. It's strange. He remembers some things too clearly. And before the accident, he and Lydia met. My pulse slowed. When? The afternoon before. I saw them outside the office. They were arguing. About what? I couldn't hear everything. But I heard your name. And money. There it was. A thread. In my old life. Holly told me this 2 years too late. After Lydia had already rewritten the story. At the time. I had no strength left to pull the thread. Now I did. Will you put that in writing? I asked. Holly swallowed. Fear crossed her face. Then shame. Then something firmer. Yes. I nodded. Send it to me. Not tonight if you're scared. But soon. She looked relieved and frightened at once. Iris. Yes. When you said you're not family, her voice broke slightly. Did you mean me too? That hurt. Because Holly had been young. Because silence is not always cruelty. Sometimes it is cowardice. Sometimes it is survival. But the person being abandoned bleeds the same either way. I mean, I said carefully, that I am no longer available to be used by this family. Anyone who wants to know me outside that arrangement can start by telling the truth. She nodded. I walked to my car. My phone buzzed before I reached the gate. Unknown number. I opened the message. You looked proud tonight. But pride won't make him remember loving you. No name. It did not need one. Lydia. In the past. That message would have made me spiral. I would have wondered what Nathan told her. I would have compared memories. I would have tried to prove she was wrong. Now I took a screenshot. Then I replied. Interesting. I never told you he forgot loving me. I only told the room he forgot knowing me. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. No answer. I saved the number and forwarded the screenshot to Claire. Within seconds, Claire replied. Good catch. She knows more than she should. I sat in my car outside the Sterling gates and looked up at the house. The dining room windows glowed warm and golden. Inside. They were probably blaming me. Margaret would call me unstable. Vincent would call me dangerous. Lydia would cry softly. Nathan would sit in silence. Offended by my absence. Unsettled by my documents. Comforted by the idea that confusion excused him from choosing. Let them. I started the car. For years. I had tried to prove I belonged in that house. Tonight. I understood the truth. The door had never been locked. I had simply been trained to beg outside it. The next morning. I went back to the hospital not to see Nathan. To see Dr. Palmer. Claire came with me. carrying a leather notebook and the expression of a woman who charged by the hour and enjoyed making bullies regret wasting time. Dr. Palmer met us in a consultation room on the 5th floor. He was a calm man in his late 50s with kind eyes and careful speech. In my past life, I had treated him like an oracle. Every vague sentence from him had become a reason to stay. Memory can return unexpectedly. Emotional pressure may delay recovery. Familiar people can trigger recognition. I had built a prison out of May. This time, Claire asked the questions. Doctor, we understand you cannot disclose private medical details beyond what Ms. Hart is authorized to know from the emergency period. She began. But we need clarification regarding general statements made in Ms. Hart's presence yesterday. Mr. Sterling stated he did not know her. Is that type of isolated memory loss medically impossible? Dr. Palmer folded his hands. Not impossible. Claire nodded. Is it common? No. Is it typical for a patient to forget only one significant intimate partner while retaining detailed memory of friends, family, business knowledge, and former romantic connections? Dr. Palmer paused. That pause mattered. It would be unusual. He said. My fingers tightened around my bag. Claire wrote something down. Unusual in what sense? Memory after head trauma can be fragmented. Emotional memories are complicated. A patient may remember facts without emotional attachment, or emotions without context. However, a highly specific absence centered on one person, especially when other memories from the same period remain available, requires careful evaluation. Could stress, guilt, or avoidance influence what a patient reports remembering? Dr. Palmer looked at me. Then at Claire. A patient's psychological state can affect recall and disclosure. Disclosure. Not memory. Disclosure. Claire heard it too. Would you be willing to provide a written statement limited to general medical principles and what was said in the room in front of Ms. Hart? I can document what occurred in her presence and provide general observations. I cannot speculate beyond that. That's all we need. He looked at me then. Ms. Hart, I want to be clear. I am not saying Mr. Sterling is lying. I understand. But he was also not saying Nathan was innocent. That was enough. When we left the room, my legs felt weak. Not from heartbreak. From the strange exhaustion of having reality confirmed after years of being told it was hysteria. Claire waited until we were in the elevator. You knew, she said. Not fully, but you suspected. In my past life, everyone acted like I was cruel for wanting answers. So eventually, I stopped asking. Claire did not ask what I meant by past life. Most people would have. Claire simply accepted that trauma made time strange. Now we ask. She said. Our next stop was the hospital administration office. Claire requested visitor logs, billing communications, and copies of all written notes tied to my authorization. We had legal access to some. Not all. That was fine. I no longer needed everything. I needed enough. The visitor logs confirmed what dinner had revealed. Lydia came first. Margaret came after. I came last. But one detail made me stop. Lydia Shaw had signed in as family contact. Not friend. Family contact. I stared at the line until it blurred. She wasn't family. No. Claire replied. But someone told the desk she was. Margaret or Nathan before the accident. Both possibilities mattered. By noon, we were in the parking garage. That was where Nathan found me. I saw him before he saw me. He stood near the elevator in a dark coat. One hand braced lightly against the wall. He looked tired. Less untouchable. More human. In another life, that would have undone me. Today, it only made me sad. Iris, he said. Claire stepped slightly forward. I touched her arm. It's okay. She did not move away. Nathan noticed. Do we need an attorney for a conversation? You needed your mother, your uncle, and your ex-girlfriend for dinner. I said. So. Yes. His face tightened. I deserved that. I said nothing. He looked at Claire. Can I speak with her alone? No. Claire said. He exhaled. Fine. A car passed behind us. Headlights washing over his face. I read some of the emails. Nathan said. The ones about the loan. The wedding. The townhouse. Good. You did a lot. I know. That came out wrong. It usually does when people notice labor only after it stops. His eyes closed briefly. I don't remember proposing. There it was. The sentence designed to make me bleed. I held still. But I believe I did. He added. How generous. His eyes opened. Iris. No. Don't say my name like it proves something. A flash of frustration crossed his face. There. That was familiar. Nathan had always been patient as long as patience cost him nothing. When my pain asked him for accountability, he became tired. When my questions interrupted his comfort, he became wounded. I'm trying, he said. No. You're reacting. What's the difference? Trying requires action before consequence. Reacting happens after I remove myself. Claire's pen moved across paper. Nathan noticed and looked irritated. What do you want from me? In my past life, I wanted everything. An apology. A memory. A hand reaching for mine. A moment where he looked at Lydia and chose me without hesitation. Now I wanted signatures. My attorney sent a list. He stared at me. That's it. No. I also want you to stop letting your family contact me directly. I can't control my mother. You control whether you benefit from what she does. His jaw worked. And Lydia? I asked. He looked away. Small. Almost imperceptible. But there. What about Lydia? She texted me last night. I didn't know that. She knew you forgot loving me. His gaze returned sharply. What? I took out my phone and showed him the screenshot. He read it. His face changed. Not confusion. Recognition. It vanished quickly. But I had seen it. Claire had seen it too. Nathan handed the phone back. I don't know why she wrote that. You know she shouldn't have known. You. Bed his forehead. This is a lot. No. I said. This is a fraction. The rest is what I carried while you remembered everyone else. He flinched. I almost felt guilty. Then I remembered the old life. The announcement. Lydia's ring. The way Nathan said. I hope one day you can let go with dignity. As if dignity was something he had not helped strip from me piece by piece. The guilt died. Nathan lowered his voice. Did I love you? The question was crueler than an insult because maybe he truly did not know. Because maybe he did. Because either way, he had made me responsible for answering. I looked at him for a long moment. Yes. I said. In the way a man loves a warm house. He never checks for cracks. His face went pale. Claire's expression did not change. But her pen stopped. You came home to me. I said. You rested in me. You trusted me to keep the lights on. But when the roof started leaking, you blamed the rain. Iris. I'm not explaining our love to you again. Again. The word slipped out. My blood went cold. Nathan heard it. So did Claire. He looked confused for real this time. What did you mean? I don't know. Try. He pressed his fingers to his temple. It felt like you had said that before. I had. In another life. On a night he came to my apartment after Lydia's charity gala. He told me he cared about me but could not force his heart to return. I told him I had spent years explaining our love to a man who used confusion as shelter. He cried. Then went back to Lydia. Now the echo of that sentence sat between us like a ghost. Nathan whispered. What happened between us? I stepped back. You should ask the people you remember. Then I walked away. At my studio. Work waited like a mercy. Hart Co. was small but mine. 3 employees. 2 contractors. A plant in the corner that refused to die. And windows facing a street full of people who did not know my heart had been publicly erased. My assistant June looked up as I entered. You have a 2 o'clock with Meridian Beauty. And someone from Sterling Innovations called twice. The CFO sounded panicked. Send him to Claire. June's eyes widened. But she nodded. She had watched me plan a wedding and build a campaign for Nathan's company at the same time. She had never said he asked too much. But her silence had grown increasingly judgmental in the months before the accident. At 2. I pitched Meridian Beauty a rebrand. At 3. I reviewed copy. At 4. I sat alone in my office and opened the folder labeled Sterling. I had avoided it in my past life until avoidance became disaster. Now I read everything. The emails formed a pattern so obvious I wanted to scream. Nathan asking me to delay invoices. Nathan saying investor funds were coming. Margaret requesting transfers for household continuity. Lydia reappearing in calendar mentions 3 months before the accident. N.O.T. as Lydia. L.W. lunch with L.W. Call with L.W. Private note. Need to resolve L.W. before engagement announcement. I stared at that line. Before engagement announcement. Resolve Lydia. Or resolve me. I searched his old forwarded calendar invites. Nathan had shared them with me when I helped coordinate his schedule for investor meetings. There at W. As. The day before the accident. 6:30 p.m. L.W. Atlas Cafe. Holly had seen them outside the office. Later. So they met. They argued. Then Nathan crashed his car at 8:10 p.m. on the West Bridge ramp. In my past life. The story was simple. Rain. Fatigue. Bad luck. But it had not rained that night. I checked the weather report. Clear. I checked the accident summary I had received as emergency contact. Single vehicle collision. No other car identified. Driver distracted before impact. Distracted by what? I requested the full report. Then Holly's written statement arrived. Iris. I'm writing down what I remember. On the day before Nathan's accident. I saw him with Lydia outside Sterling Innovations around 6:15 p.m. They were arguing near the side entrance. Lydia said. You can't marry her after everything I gave up. Nathan said. This isn't about love anymore. Lydia said. Then tell her the truth about the guarantee. I left before they saw me. I should have told you sooner. I'm sorry. Holly. I read it 3 times. Then I sent it to Claire. Her reply came fast. This changes leverage. Also motive. Motive. Not for murder. Not for conspiracy. This was not that kind of story. But motive for silence. Motive for selective forgetting. Motive for allowing me to be erased before I could ask what truth Lydia meant. At 7 that evening. Someone knocked on my studio door. I expected June. It was Lydia. She stood in the hallway wearing a camel coat. Her hair loose. Her face arranged into fragile concern. I did not invite her in. She smiled faintly. Can we talk? No. Her smile trembled. I know you're angry. I'm busy. Iris. I don't want us to be enemies. We're not enemies. Relief crossed her face too quickly. We're not anything. I said. The relief died. She stepped closer. Nathan is suffering. Then comfort him. You're good at being first in the room. Her eyes hardened only for a second. Then the softness returned. He asked about you today. I said nothing. He's confused by how cold you are. There at W. As. The accusation. A woman can be abandoned. Humiliated. Financially drained. Publicly replaced. And still be judged by the temperature of her response. I leaned against the doorframe. Did you come here to update me on a man who doesn't know me? I came because he's not ready for legal threats. Then he shouldn't have built his recovery on my money. Lydia's voice lowered. You always do that. What? Make love sound like accounting. I smiled. She had no idea how much I had paid to learn that accounting saves women when love becomes a weapon. Love became accounting when your name appeared before mine in the hospital visitor log. Her face went still. And when you signed in as family co-tact. She recovered quickly. Margaret handled that. Of course. Nathan needed someone familiar. He had a fiancé. He didn't remember you. You didn't know that before he woke up. She looked at me for a long moment. The mask slipped again. This time she let it. You think being ch. Awesome on paper means something? She asked softly. He came to see me before the accident. He was scared. Iris. Not of memory loss. Of marrying you. The words hit. Not because I believed her fully. Because part of me knew Nathan had been afraid. Not of me. Of what I represented. Debt. Promise. Gratitude. A future he could not casually escape without becoming the villain. Lydia saw the impact and smiled. He told me you saved him, she whispered. And he hated that he owed you. I opened the recording app behind my phone case already running. Did he tell you to come back? I asked. He didn't have to. Did he tell you about the guarantee? Her smile widened. You really don't know. I kept my face blank. She leaned in. Voice sweet as poison. Your guarantee wasn't temporary. The investors were never replacing it. Nathan knew. His mother knew. He was going to tell you after the wedding. When leaving would cost you more. For 1 second. The hallway tilted. Not from surprise. From confirmation. In my past life, debt had appeared after vows. I had thought it was bad timing. Bad management. Bad luck. No. It was design. Lydia watched me. Hungry for collapse. I gave her nothing. Thank you. I said. She blinked. For what? For finally being useful. Her eyes dropped to my phone. Too late. I stopped the recording. Lydia's face changed completely. You recorded me. Yes. You can't use that. I can use it to help my attorney ask better questions. You're pathetic. There she is. She stepped back as if I had slapped her. I closed the studio door. My hands shook after the lock clicked. This time. I let them. Then I sent the recording to Claire. Her response. Do not speak to her again. This is enough to move aggressively. At 9. Nathan texted. Lydia said you threatened her. I stared at the message. Then typed. Please direct all communication to my attorney. He replied immediately. Nathan. Stop hiding behind lawyers. I almost laughed. For years. He had hidden behind injury, confusion, family, guilt, and Lydia's tears. Now my lawyer offended him. I wrote. Stop hiding behind lost memory. No response. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. Nathan. I declined. He called again. Declined. Then a voicemail appeared. I played it once. His voice was low, rough, uneven. I don't know what's real anymore, but I know you mattered. I know that now because every time you step back, something in me panics. I don't know if that's memory or guilt. Maybe both. Please talk to me. In my old life, I would have gone to him. In this life. I saved the voicemail. Then I turned off my phone. The next morning, Claire filed formal notice of engagement dissolution and financial withdrawal. By afternoon, Sterling Innovations called an emergency board meeting. By evening, Margaret came to my apartment and found the lock code changed. The security camera caught her standing outside, furious, pressing numbers that no longer opened my door. I watched the footage from my couch. She called me 9 times. Then she sent one message. You are destroying Nathan. I typed back one final direct response. No. I stopped preventing the consequences. Then I blocked her too. For the first time in 2 lives. The night was quiet. No hospital calls. No Lydia messages. No Margaret orders. No Nathan asking me to explain why love should still matter. Just silence. At first it terrified me. Then it began to feel like air. The charity gala was Margaret's idea. Of course it was. When private control failed, she reached for public performance. The invitation arrived through 3 different channels: email, courier, and a call from an event coordinator who sounded terrified to be involved. Sterling Innovations was sponsoring a Neurological Recovery Foundation dinner in Nathan's name. The event would celebrate resilience, family, and the power of memory. The power of memory. I read the phrase twice. Then forwarded it to Claire. She called me 10 seconds later. She's trying to own the narrative. I know. The guest list includes investors, hospital donors, press, and half the board. I know. Do you want to avoid it? I looked at the invitation. In my past life, Margaret had used a similar gala to publicly reposition Lydia. Nathan had thanked the people who stood by me when I didn't know myself. Lydia had cried. Margaret had embraced her. I had stood near the back holding Nathan's speech cards. A reporter asked who I was. Margaret answered. A dear friend of the family. This time I said, no, I want to attend. Claire paused. Then she said, good, I'll come with you. The gala was held at the Marlowe Hotel in a ballroom filled with champagne, white flowers, and people who smiled like they were being photographed even when no camera was pointed at them. I wore deep blue. No ring. No softness arranged for approval. Claire walked beside me in black, carrying a slim folder that could ruin several people's evening. The room changed when I entered. Not dramatically. This was a wealthy crowd. They knew how to pretend. But conversations dipped. Eyes moved to my hand. Then to the stage where Nathan stood beside Margaret and Lydia. Lydia wore ivory a little too close to bridal. Margaret saw me first. Her smile did not move. Nathan saw me next. His expression shifted in a way that made cameras turn. He looked thinner, tired, haunted around the eyes. Lydia touched his arm. He did not look down at her hand. Good. Let discomfort do its work. Holly found me near the side of the ballroom. You came. Yes. Mom told people you were invited as a courtesy. Holly looked ashamed. Nathan fought her on that. I studied her. Did he? He said you should be seated with family. And am I? Holly winced. That answered me. I touched her shoulder once. Thank you for the statement. She nodded. I should have done more. Start tonight. Her eyes lifted. Before she could answer, the lights dimmed. Dinner began. Claire and I were seated at table 12 between a retired hospital trustee and a cosmetics executive who knew my work. Not family. Not even close associates. Far enough to make a point. The trustee leaned toward me. You're Ms. Hart, aren't you? Nathan's fiancée. The cosmetics executive froze. I smiled politely. Former fiancé. The trustee looked confused. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought. Many people did. Across the room. Margaret watched. Let her. The speeches began after dessert. A foundation chair spoke about trauma. A surgeon spoke about recovery. Vincent Sterling spoke about company resilience. Which was rich coming from a man whose resilience depended heavily on my personal guarantee. Then Margaret took the stage. She looked perfect under the lights. My son's accident reminded our family that memory is not merely a record of the past. She said, it is love, loyalty, and presence. Some people remain when life becomes difficult. Others reveal that their devotion was conditional. Claire's hand touched her folder. I did not move. Margaret continued. We are grateful to those who gave Nathan peace during his recovery. Who did not pressure him. Who did not demand more than he could give. Lydia lowered her head at the front table. Applause stirred softly. Margaret smiled with maternal sorrow. Lydia Shaw has been one such person. The applause grew. Lydia stood, cheeks shining with tears. Nathan did not stand. The room noticed. Margaret noticed too. Her smile tightened. And of course, she added, we extend grace to everyone affected by this painful period. Confusion hurts more than the injured person. It touches everyone nearby. Grace. She was offering me grace while standing on a stage funded partly by my labor. My money. My name. Something inside me went perfectly still. Margaret stepped back. The host moved toward the microphone. Then Nathan stood. A murmur passed through the ballroom. Margaret's eyes widened slightly. Nathan walked to the stage slowly but without help. Lydia reached toward him. He did not take her hand. He stood at the microphone for a moment. He said nothing. Then he looked directly at me. I'm told I should speak about memory tonight. He said. The room softened. People loved wounded men. Their pain looked noble under chandeliers. I wish I could give you a clean story. Nathan continued. A story where I woke up, fought hard, and remembered everything that mattered. His hand tightened around the podium. But the truth is less clean. I forgot someone I should not have forgotten. My breath caught despite myself. Margaret moved in her chair. Lydia's face went white. Nathan said. Iris Hart was my fiancée. The ballroom reacted in waves. Whispers. Shifting chairs. A glass set down too hard. I felt Claire glance at me. I did not look away from Nathan. She paid the emergency deposit after my accident. He said. She signed the first medical forms. She was involved in my life before I lost pieces of it. Margaret rose halfway. Vincent pulled at her sleeve. Nathan saw them. His jaw tightened. And she was treated poorly by my family during my recovery. This time. The room did not whisper. It inhaled. Lydia stood abruptly. Nathan, you're not well. He looked at her. I'm well enough to know that much. For 1 second. I wondered if this was the apology I had once begged God for. Then Nathan looked back at the room and said, I hope tonight can be a beginning of healing. There it was. Healing. A soft word. A public word. A word that asked me to complete the scene by forgiving him. Margaret's shoulders lowered with relief. Lydia sat slowly. Calculating. The room waited. They expected me to cry. They expected me to nod. They expected wounded love to become public reconciliation because that was the story people preferred. I stood. Claire stood with me. Every head turned. I walked toward the stage. My heels making small, clear sounds against the floor. Nathan watched me approach with hope so naked it almost hurt to see. Almost. The host looked confused but handed me the second microphone when Claire said quietly, Ms. Hart will respond. Margaret's face hardened. I stood at the foot of the stage instead of climbing onto it. That mattered. I would not stand beside him. Thank you for finally confirming our engagement. I said. A few people shifted uncomfortably. Nathan's expression faltered. But I need to correct the rest. Margaret said sharply, Iris, this is not appropriate. I looked at the audience. That sentence has followed me through every room where this family needed my silence. Claire opened the folder. A screen behind the stage used earlier for foundation slides flickered as the event technician received the file Claire had arranged in advance. Not secretal. Why? Not illegally. We had offered a response presentation when my name appeared in the program as an honored donor without my consent. They had ignored the email. That was their mistake. The first slide appeared. Medical deposit receipt paid by Iris Hart. Second slide. Emergency authorization signed by Iris Hart. Third. Monthly transfers to Margaret Sterling. Fourth. Invoices from Hart Co. Marked deferred at Nathan Sterling's request. Fifth. Personal guarantee tied to Sterling Innovations bridge loan. The ballroom went silent. I spoke evenly. When Nathan woke and said he did not know me, his family told me to leave publicly. In front of hospital staff. I did. But after I left. They expected me to keep paying. Margaret stepped toward the microphone. This is private financial information. No. Claire said from beside the stage. These are Ms. Hart's records. The screen changed. Hospital visitor log. Lydia Shaw. Family contact. 1. 12 M. Margaret Sterling. 4. 16 M. Iris Hart. 5. 02 M. A whisper moved through the room. I looked at Lydia. She was called before me. I said. Before anyone knew Nathan would claim not to remember me. Lydia's lips parted. No sound came out. Nathan stared at the screen. I could not read his face. Good. His feelings were no longer my assignment. The next slide appeared. Lydia's message. Pride won't make him remember loving you. The room reacted louder this time. Someone said, Oh my God. I held the microphone with both hands. At that point, Lydia knew Nathan had not merely forgotten my face. She knew the emotional framing being used against me. Lydia stood. That message was taken out of context. Then explain the context. She looked at Nathan. He did not save her. So she looked at Margaret. Margaret did not move. The screen changed again. Holly's written statement. I heard Lydia say. No. Lydia's voice cracked. Holly stood at the family table. Pale but steady. It's true. She said. Every camera turned toward her. I saw Nathan and Lydia arguing the day before the accident. I heard Lydia mention Iris and the guarantee. I should have spoken earlier. I didn't. That was wrong. Margaret hissed. Holly. Holly's voice shook but did not stop. Iris was not some stranger who appeared after the accident. She was Nathan's fiancée. And we all knew it. There it was. The recognition I had once begged for. It did not heal what they had done. But it ended their lie. Nathan stepped down from the stage. Iris. He said. Voice low. I turned to him. His eyes were wet. I remember pieces now. He said. The proposal. Your apartment. The loan. I remember being afraid. The microphone caught every word. Margaret closed her eyes. Lydia looked as if the floor had disappeared beneath her. Afraid of what? I asked. He swallowed. Of owing you. Of marrying you while knowing I had let the guarantee continue. Of telling you the investors weren't replacing it. The ballroom went utterly still. Claire's gaze sharpened. Vincent muttered a curse. Nathan looked like confession hurt him more and silence ever had. I was going to tell you. He said. When? He did not answer. When? Nathan. His voice broke. After the wedding. A sound moved through the crowd. Not sympathy. Judgment. I nodded once. Thank you. He looked at me with desperate relief. Mistaking acknowledgement for forgiveness. Then I turned back to the room. That is why I am no longer engaged to Nathan Sterling. That is why my legal team is withdrawing all financial exposure. That is why my company will invoice Sterling Innovations for unpaid work. And that is why any future statement suggesting I abandoned an injured man will be met with documentation. Margaret's face twisted. You planned this. No. I said. I prepared for the truth. Lydia suddenly laughed. It was small and sharp. You think this makes you noble? She asked. You wanted everyone to see you as the victim. I faced her. No. I wanted everyone to stop using my silence as their shelter. Her eyes shone with angry tears. He came to me because he was unhappy. Then you should have asked why an unhappy man still needed my money. The Lin. E hit harder than I expected. Someone at the front table whispered. Lydia's mouth closed. I handed the microphone back to the host. Nathan reached for Menet dramatically. Just a hand half raised. I looked at it. He let it fall. Can we talk? He asked. We just did. Privately. No. His face crumpled for 1 second. Please. In my past life. Please had been enough. Tonight. I stepped away. Claire walked beside me as we crossed the ballroom. People moved out of our path. Some looked ashamed. Some curious. Some admiring. Most simply looked relieved they were not the ones exposed under the lights. Near the exit, the hospital trustee from my table touched my arm gently. Ms. Hart. She said. I'm sorry. I looked at her. She had believed the easiest version. Most people do. Thank you. I said. Outside the ballroom. The hallway was quiet. Then footsteps rushed behind us. Nathan. Iris. Wait. I stopped because I wanted the final memory to be clean. Not because he deserved another chance. He stood a few feet away. Breathing hard. I'm sorry. He said. The words were late. They were real. They were not enough. I know. I remember more than I said. My chest tightened. Claire looked at me silently, asking if I wanted to continue. I nodded once. Nathan stepped closer. After the accident. Things were foggy. But it wasn't just blank. I remembered feelings before facts. With Lydia. There was nostalgia. With my mother. Obligation. With Holly. Family. With you he struggled. With me. Debt. Warmth. Fear. Shame. I didn't want to look at it. Every time you came near. I felt guilty before I knew why. So when they said not to pressure me, I let them keep you away. For a moment. There was no sound. That was the truth at last. Not that he forgot me. That remembering me required him to face himself. And he chose not to. I nodded. You did not lose only me. I said. You gave me away because I made you uncomfortable. He flinched like I had struck him. I was injured. You were also selfish. His eyes filled. Can't both be true. Yes. That surprised him. I continued. You were injured. You were confused. You were pressured by your mother and Lydia. And you were selfish. One truth does not erase the others. He covered his mouth with one hand. I had never seen him look so young. So broken. So human. In another story. That might have been the moment love returned. But I had already lived the story where his pain became my responsibility. I would not live it twice. My attorney will send the final agreement tomorrow. I said. His hand dropped. Final. Yes. Iris. I remember you now. I looked at him for a long second. The man I had loved was there. So was the man who let me be erased. They were not separate people. That was the hardest part. I know, I said. But I remember me too. Then I walked out of the hotel. Behind me, he said my name. This time, I did not turn around. The final meeting took place in a law office with gray walls and excellent coffee. Nathan arrived 10 minutes early. Margaret arrived 5 minutes late. Because control sometimes disguises itself as timing, Vincent came with her. Lydia did not come. Her absence was the first intelligent thing she had done since returning to Nathan's life. Claire sat beside me across the table. Nathan looked like a man who had not slept. He wore a navy suit I had chosen for him 2 years ago. I hated that I recognized it. I hated more that the recognition no longer made me want to fix his collar. Margaret looked at my bare hand and then away. No one mentioned the gala. Everyone had seen enough. Claire opened the meeting. We're here to finalize 3 matters. First, dissolution of the engagement and cancellation or division of wedding-related contracts. Second, repayment schedule for personal funds advanced by Ms. Hart. Third, release of Ms. Hart from all guarantees connected to Sterling Innovations. Vincent said. The guarantee release is not entirely in our control. Claire smiled. Then you should have considered that before representing it as temporary to induce Ms. Hart's signature. Margaret's nostrils flared. Nathan said quietly. We'll replace it. Vincent turned to him. You don't know if we can. We will. Nathan's voice had steel in it for a moment. I saw the founder. He used to be decisive. Brilliant. Capable of bending rooms. Then I remembered how often he had bent me. Claire slid the documents forward. The repayment amount includes hospital deposit, household transfers, vendor payments, unpaid consulting fees, and emergency company expenses. Margaret looked at the total and laughed. This is absurd. No. I said. Absurd was calling me a stranger while spending my money. Her eyes snapped to mine. You enjoyed being needed. The room chilled. Nathan looked at his mother. Stop. But I raised my hand slightly. No. Let her finish. Margaret's mouth tightened. I leaned back. You're GHT. I said. That surprised her. I did enjoy being needed. I confused usefulness with belonging. I accepted responsibility when I should have asked for respect. That was my mistake. Margaret's expression shifted. Uncertain. But your mistake, I continued, was believing my weakness was a permanent resource. Nathan closed his eyes. Vincent read the repayment schedule with the grim focus of a man discovering math could be moral. This timeline is aggressive, he said. So was the extraction. Claire replied. Nathan picked up the pen. Margaret grabbed his wrist. Do not sign without negotiating. He looked at her hand. Then at me. Then he gently removed his wrist from her grip. I'm signing, Nathan said. His voice was quiet. The kind of quiet Margaret could not easily fight in public. He signed the first page. Then the second. Then the third. When he reached the engagement dissolution agreement, he stopped. I watched his hand hover above the signature line. There it was. The delayed grief. Not just his mind. Too. Once that signature line would have been a wedding license. A mortgage deed. A child's school form. A hotel check-in on some anniversary trip. 1,000 ordinary futures. Now, it was an ending. Nathan looked at me. I need to say something before I sign. Claire said. This is not required. I know. He kept his eyes on me. I loved you. Margaret made a small sound of frustration. Nathan ignored her. I did. Not well. Not bravely. But I did. And when I woke up, some part of me knew I had failed you before I knew your name. I let that shame decide how I treated you. I folded my hands in my lap. I'm not saying that to excuse it, he said. I'm saying it because you deserve to hear at least one truth from me without being forced to drag it out. The room was silent. I believed him. That was the cruelest mercy of all. He had loved me. He had failed me anyway. I nodded. Thank you for saying it. His face broke. Softly. Is there any version of this where we start over? Margaret looked at me with sudden, terrible hope. Not because she wanted me. Because she wanted the disaster contained. Vincent waited. Even Claire went still. I thought of the woman I used to be. The one who would have taken this question and built a cathedral inside it. Start over. How seductive those words are to women who have survived endings. How easily they make pain feel like investment instead of warning. I looked at Nathan. No. His eyes shut. I did not rush to comfort him. No. I repeated gently this time. Because starting over would still begin with me remembering what you allowed when forgetting me was convenient. He nodded once. As if each word cost him something. Then he signed. The pen made a small scratching sound. That was all. No thunder. No music. Just ink. By the end of the meeting, the engagement was legally dissolved. Repayment was scheduled. Sterling Innovations had 30 days to replace my guarantee or face formal action. All public references to me as an active family associate, donor, partner, or fiancé were to be removed unless approved in writing. Margaret stood so quickly her chair struck the wall. You got what you wanted, she said. No. I said. I got what was mine. She looked like she wanted to slap me. Claire looked like she wanted her to try. Margaret left first. Vincent followed. Already on the phone. Nathan remained seated when Claire stepped out to copy the documents. He and I were alone for the first time since the accident. It felt strange. Not dangerous. Just finished. I went to your apartment. He said. I changed the code. I know. A ghost of a smile crossed his face and vanished. You sent back my things. Yes. You kept nothing. I thought of the ring still in an envelope in Claire's file. No. He swallowed. I kept the blue mug you hated. He said. The one with the chipped handle. My chest ached. I remembered that mug. I bought it at a roadside market during a weekend trip. Nathan said it was ugly. Then used it every morning because it held more coffee than the expensive ones. Throw it away. I said. I can't. That is no longer something I can help you with. He looked down. You're different. No. I said. I'm finally consistent with what I deserve. Claire returned. The moment ended. Outside the law office. Rain fell lightly over the city. Nathan walked me to the elevator, though I did not ask him to. At the doors, he said, I hope you build something beautiful. I will. I know. The elevator opened. I stepped inside. He did not follow. As the doors began to close, he said, Goodbye. Iris. For the first time. He did not sound like he was asking me to turn around. So, I gave him the respect of answering. Goodbye, Nathan. The doors closed. I breathed. The month that followed was not glamorous. Freedom rarely is. At first, it was paperwork, calls, vendor cancellations, bank reviews, late-night anger, sudden crying in grocery aisles because I reached for Nathan's favorite cereal without thinking, therapy appointments, sleep that came too late, mornings that felt unfamiliar because no one was demanding pieces of me before breakfast. But the quiet stayed. And slowly, I began to fill it with myself. Sterling Innovations replaced my guarantee on the 27th day. Not easily. The new terms were worse. Investors had lost confidence after the gala. Not only because of the scandal, but because the scandal revealed sloppy financial dependency hidden beneath Nathan's polished leadership. Their board removed Vincent from financial oversight. Margaret sold a vacation property to cover part of the repayment. I did not celebrate. I simply deposited the money. Lydia's dow. Fall was quieter, but no less complete. The gala footage circulated through private circles first. Then business press picked up the story after a reporter confirmed her family contact sign-in and her connection to Nathan before the accident. Her image as loyal caregiver collapsed into something less marketable. Opportunist. That was the word people used. I did not correct them. Nathan entered rehabilitation for cognitive recovery. And according to Holly, therapy. Real therapy. Not the kind wealthy families use to polish pain into better language. Holly and I had coffee once. She apologized again. I accepted the apology not as a return to family, but as a beginning between two separate people. Do you hate him? She asked. We were sitting near the window of a quiet cafe. Steam rising from our cups. I thought carefully. No. She looked surprised. I loved him. I said. Then I survived him. Hate would keep me longer than I want to stay. Holly cried. I handed her a napkin. That was all. 3 months after the hospital room. I opened a new office. Not large. Not flashy. Mine. Heartco. Moved into the top floor of a restored brick building with tall windows and uneven floors. We signed 2 new clients in the first week. Meridian Beauty expanded our contract. June brought champagne and a ridiculous plant he claimed represented aggressive growth. I placed it by the window. On opening night, I invited friends, clients, former colleagues and no one from the Sterling family except Holly. She came alone with flowers and no expectations. Near the end of the evening, a courier arrived. A small box. No sender listed. Inside was the engagement ring. For 1 second, the room around me faded. Claire, who had come straight from court, saw my face and walked over. Do you want me to handle it? I shook my head. There was a note under the velvet. I read it. I remember the day I bought it. Now, I remember thinking nothing could scare me if you said yes. I was wrong. I became afraid. Anyway. You should have this back. Not as a chain, but as proof that you were never imaginary. Nathan. I closed the note. June hovered nearby. Are you okay? Yes. And I was. Not untouched. Not healed in the simple way people prefer. But okay. I took the ring to the open window. The city moved below. Alive and indifferent. Somewhere out there. Nathan was remembering. Lydia was rebuilding or scheming. Margaret was blaming everyone but herself. Life continued because life always continues. Even after we think our heartbreak should stop the world. I did not throw the ring dramatically into the street. That would have made him paw. RT of the moment instead. I placed it back in the box and handed it to Claire. Sell it. I said. Donate the money to the Recovery Foundation. In my name only. Claire smiled with pleasure. Later, after everyone left, I stood alone in my new office. The floors creaked under my heels. The city lights reflected in the windows. My desk was still empty except for a laptop, a cup of cold coffee, and a framed photo June had taken that night. In it, I was laughing with my head turned slightly away from the camera. I looked happy, not because a man remembered me, because I had stopped disappearing. My phone buzzed. A message from Nathan. I hesitated. Then I opened it. Nathan. I heard about your new office. Congratulations. I won't ask to see you. I just wanted to say I'm glad you kept going. I read it once. There was no hook in it. No plea. No please call. No I miss you. Just a sentence placed gently outside my door. I typed. Thank you. Then I blocked his number. Not out of anger. Out of mercy. For him. Maybe for me. Absolutely. I turned off the lights and locked the office door. Outside. The hallway smelled of fresh paint and rain. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. I stepped inside carrying nothing that belonged to him. In my past life, Nathan lost his memory and forgot only me. In this life, he remembered too late. But the real difference was not his memory. It was mine. I remembered the woman who paid, waited, begged, and broke. I remembered the woman who stood in a hospital room and took off her ring. I remembered the woman who stopped trying to be chosen by people who only valued her when she was useful. And then I walked into the rest of my life without looking back.